It's 3 a.m. on the Las Vegas Strip. You just left the club. Your ears are still ringing, your feet hurt. And you're hungry that specific 3 a.m. Vegas hungry, where nothing sounds better than a plate of scrambled eggs and bacon at a counter while the casino hums around you. You walk into the casino. The slot machines are still blinking. The carpet still has that pattern. The air still smells like cigarettes and possibility and whatever they pump through the vents. You head toward the restaurants, the coffee shop that's supposed to be open, the place where Vegas happens at 3 a.m., the dealers on break, the tourists who can't sleep, the couples who just got married, the gamblers who lost track of time 3 days ago. And you find gates pulled down, locked, closed signs everywhere you look. The coffee shop that used to serve pancakes at 4 a.m. closed at midnight. The steakhouse, closed since 11. The buffet doesn't exist anymore, closed permanently, like most of them. Room service, you check the menu in your room, ends at 10 p.m. You're standing in the city that never sleeps, and everything is asleep. The 24/7 promise is dying. The fundamental identity of Las Vegas, the thing that made this city different from every other place on earth, is being quietly dismantled. Property by property, restaurant by restaurant, hour by hour. The city that never slept is learning how to close its eyes, going to bed earlier every year, pulling down the gates, sending the staff home, giving up on the hours that used to define it. And what's replacing it is something Vegas has never been before: ordinary. A place with operating hours, a destination that closes, a city that sleeps just like everywhere else. The end of what made Vegas actually Vegas. Today I'm showing you the end of 24/7 Vegas. How the city that built its entire identity on never closing is systematically shutting down. Why the 3 a.m. magic that defined Vegas for 70 years is disappearing. What happens when the city that never sleeps becomes the city that closes at midnight? The restaurants going dark earlier every month, the casino floors emptying after midnight, the clubs cutting hours, the room service menus getting shorter, the graveyard shift vanishing position by position across the strip. The slow death of an identity, the quiet murder of what made Vegas worth the trip. If you're new here, I expose the identity crises killing the strip, not just the closures and layoffs you read about in headlines. The fundamental changes that transform what Vegas is. The shifts that turn a legendary city into just another resort destination with palm trees and slot machines. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications. Because when 24/7 dies, Vegas becomes something else entirely, something ordinary, something that doesn't justify the flight or the hotel or the stories you wanted to tell. And that something else is already taking shape, right now, this month, while the gates come down earlier and earlier. Let me show you what 24/7 Vegas used to mean, what the promise actually was. Because unless you understand what's being lost, the experience that made Vegas unlike anywhere else on earth, you won't understand why losing it changes everything. This isn't about restaurant hours. This isn't about operational efficiency. This is about the soul of a city, the identity that justified everything else. The thing that made Vegas Vegas. Vegas at 3 a.m. used to be alive, not dying down, not winding up, genuinely, fully alive. A different city than 3 p.m., but just as vibrant. Start with the coffee shops, the 2 4-hour diners that anchored the late-night experience at every major property. Picture it. 4 a.m., you slide onto a stool at the counter, the vinyl squeaks, the menu is laminated, sticky in the corners. The fluorescent lights hum overhead, that slightly yellow light that exists only in places that never close. Around you, a dealer still in her uniform, name tag pinned to her vest, eating a Western omelet before driving home. A couple in wedding clothes, she's still got the veil, he's got his tie loosened, splitting a piece of pie. A guy in a Hawaiian shirt who's been at the blackjack table for 6 hours and just needed a break before going back for more. The clatter of plates, the sizzle from the kitchen, the smell of bacon and coffee and hash browns crisping on a griddle. The waitress who calls everyone Han and has been working this shift for 15 years and has seen everything. That was 3 a.m. Vegas. That was the promise. The place where you could get a full breakfast while the casino hummed around you, where time didn't exist, where the party never had to end because the coffee shop was always there to catch you. The casino floor at 3 a.m. was its own world. Different crowd than prime time, but a crowd, the night owls. the insomniacs. The people who specifically came to Vegas because Vegas didn't judge what time you wanted to play blackjack. The European tourists still on their home time zone. The gamblers who'd found a hot streak and weren't about to leave. The craps table with a crowd around it, even at 4 a.m. someone rolling well, the energy building, strangers cheering together. The poker room running 3 tables, the serious players grinding through the night while tourists sleep. The sound of the casino never stopping, the shuffle of cards, the rattle of chips, the electronic symphony of slot machines finding winners. That specific hum of a place that operates at full capacity around the clock. And beyond the casino, the restaurants that served full menus until dawn. The room service that answered at any hour. The concierge, who could get you show tickets at 3 a.m. if you wanted them. The sense that whatever you wanted, whenever you wanted it, Vegas would find a way to say yes. That was the promise. That was the identity. The city where time didn't exist, where 4 a.m. and 4 p.m. were equally valid, where the question, what time is it, genuinely didn't matter because everything was always available. That Vegas is dying. Walk the strip at 3 a.m. now and feel the difference. The restaurants are closed. The coffee shops that used to anchor your 4 a.m. adventures shuttered at midnight or gone entirely. The energy that used to pulse through the building at all hours faded, thinned, concentrated into prime time while the off hours go dark. The casino floors are sparse. Not empty, but sparse, thinned out. Skeleton crews of gamblers rattling around in spaces built for crowds. Sections roped off, tables closed. Dealers sent home because there's no one to deal to. The buffet that was open 24 hours? It doesn't exist anymore. The room service menu? Check the hours it stopped at 10 p.m.? The coffee shop you were counting on? Find the gate pulled down, the lights off, the see you tomorrow sign that didn't exist a few years ago. One by one, hour by hour, the 24/7th promise is being broken. The city that never slept is going to bed, earlier every year. The hours shrinking, the gates coming down sooner. And what's replacing it is something Vegas has never been before. Ordinary. A place with operating hours. A destination that closes when destinations close. A city that sleeps while its guests lie in hotel rooms wondering what happened to the place they came to experience. The end of what made Vegas actually Vegas. The death of an identity. The murder of a promise. And once that promise is broken, it doesn't get rebuilt. You don't resurrect 24/7ths once you've killed it. You just become somewhere else. Somewhere ordinary. Somewhere that used to be special. The closures aren't random. They're not arbitrary decisions by individual managers who happen to feel like going home early. They're not temporary adjustments that'll reverse when conditions improve. They're the math. The brutal, inescapable math of operating costs versus revenue. When there aren't enough tourists at 3 a.m. to justify the staff, you cut the hours. When the graveyard shift loses money every single night, you eliminate the graveyard shift. When 24/7ths becomes a liability instead of an identity, you let it die. Let me show you what's actually closing. The specifics. The places that used to anchor the 24/7ths experience going dark one by one. The 2 4-hour coffee shops are nearly extinct. The species that defined late-night Vegas for generations endangered, dying, almost gone. Cafe Bellagio, the coffee shop at one of the most famous properties on Earth. Used to be open around the clock, used to catch the overflow from the casino floor at any hour, the Eggs Benedict at 4 a.m., the tourists refueling before one more session at the tables. Now it closes. Check the hours they end. The 2 4-hour promise broken at the flagship property. The coffee shop at Caesars. Reduced hours. The Grand Cafe at Palace Station. The cafe at the Venetian. Property after property, the same story repeating itself. The places where Vegas happened after midnight, the counters where dealers sat next to newlyweds, sat next to degenerates, sat next to insomniacs, shrinking their hours, closing at midnight, closing at 11, or closing permanently and not being replaced with anything. The 2 4-hour diner isn't a Vegas institution anymore, it's a Vegas memory. The coffee shops are dying, but they're just the most visible casualty, the canary in the coal mine. The full-service restaurants are retreating even faster. The steakhouses that used to serve until 2 a.m., until 3 a.m., closing at 10 now, 11 if you're lucky. The kitchen staff sent home because there's no one to cook for. And room service, the ultimate expression of whatever you want, whenever you want it, is being gutted. But the real crisis isn't in the restaurants. The casino floors themselves are going dark after midnight, and when the casino floor contracts, you know the crisis has reached the core. Walk the casino floor at 3 a.m., not the main entrance where they keep the lights bright for appearances. Walk deeper, into the pits, past the slot banks, into the sections that used to pulse with action at every hour. Count the table games actually open. Really count them. The blackjack pit that used to run 12 tables overnight? 4 tables open now, maybe 3. The rest have chairs stacked on top, the felts covered, the dealers sent home because there's no one to deal to. The high-limit room, the sanctuary where the real money used to play at any hour, closes at 2 a.m. now. Rope across the entrance. Lights dimmed. The whales, who used to play through the night, told to come back tomorrow. The poker room that ran games 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, it operates on a schedule now. Last game breaks, room closes, doesn't reopen until noon. The grinders, who used to play through the night, have to find somewhere else. Even the slot machines, the lowest labor form of gambling, the revenue generators that don't require dealers or pit bosses or any human interaction at all, even the slots are being turned off. Walk through the far sections of any casino floor after midnight. The machines sit dark, not broken, not out of service, just turned off, powered down. The electricity not worth spending when no one's playing them. The casino floor is the revenue engine. The heart of the operation, the thing that's supposed to fund everything else, the restaurants, the shows, the rooms, the entire infrastructure. And even the casino floor can't justify 24/7 operations anymore. When the heart starts shutting down, the body is in trouble. The clubs that made Vegas the nightlife capital of the world, the temples of excess, where the party went until the sun came up, are retreating too. Marquee, Hakkasan, Omnia, XS. The names that used to mean 5 a.m., 6 a.m., the party moving to the day club as the sun rose and the energy never stopping. Walk past them now on a regular weekend. Check the closing times, 3 a.m., 2 a.m. on slow nights. The energy that used to build until dawn now peaks at midnight and fades by 2. The staff sent home earlier, the lights coming up sooner, the last call announcement that used to happen at 4:30 now happening at 2:30. The lounges with live music until 4 a.m., reduced hours, or gone entirely. The bars that never closed, closing at 2, at 1, whenever the crowd thins enough that staying open stops making sense. The after-hour spots that caught the overflow from the clubs, the places you'd go when the club kicked you out at 5 a.m. and you weren't ready to stop, vanished. There's no overflow to catch when the clubs close at 2. Even the day clubs, the pool parties that were supposed to be the future of Vegas entertainment, are shrinking. The innovation that justified massive investment, the reimagining of what Vegas could be. Wet Republic, Encore Beach Club, Marquee Day Club. Properties spending hundreds of millions building pool complexes that could hold thousands. Check the operating schedules now. Fewer days, shorter hours. The all-day into night energy that defined them contracted into afternoon windows. Friday through Sunday instead of every day. Opening later, closing earlier. The day clubs were supposed to replace what nightlife was losing. Instead, they're following the same path, shrinking, reducing, cutting hours because the tourists to fill them don't exist. Restaurants closing early, coffee shops dying, casino floors contracting, clubs cutting hours, lounges going dark, day clubs shrinking. The 24/7's infrastructure is being dismantled piece by piece, hour by hour. The graveyard shift eliminated across every category. And here's why it's not coming back. The math. Every hour of operation requires staff, dealers, servers, security, housekeeping, cooks, bartenders, cashiers, slot attendants. Every single hour costs money, whether the customers show up or not. When the tourists stopped coming at 3 a.m., when the graveyard shift became a ghost shift, when the late night revenue collapsed, the properties did the math, and the math said close. Close earlier, staff less, operate fewer hours, save the money. The 24/7's promise was an expense Vegas could afford when tourists filled the buildings around the clock, when the casino floor hummed at 4 a.m., when the coffee shops had a crowd at 5, when the late night hours generated enough revenue to justify the cost. Now 24/7 is a luxury Vegas can't justify, a relic of a time when the tourists showed up, an identity that costs more than it earns. The identity is dying because the identity costs too much, and dead identities don't resurrect. Once you send the graveyard shift home, they don't come back. Once you close the coffee shop at midnight, it doesn't reopen at 4 a.m. Once you kill 24/7, it stays dead. The hours are shrinking. The graveyard shift is dying. The 24/7 promise is being quietly broken across the strip, restaurant by restaurant, property by property, hour by hour. But here's why it matters. Why this isn't just an operational adjustment or an efficiency measure or a smart business decision. Why losing 24/7 changes what Vegas fundamentally is. Why this is an identity crisis, not a scheduling update. When Vegas sleeps, Vegas becomes something else, and that something else might not be worth visiting. Vegas's entire brand was built on one promise: no limits. No closing time, no last call that actually meant last call. No judgment about when you wanted to eat or drink or gamble or party. The place where normal rules didn't apply, where the clock on the wall was just decoration. That promise was the differentiator, the reason you'd fly to Vegas instead of going to a casino closer to home. Think about it, the tribal casino near Phoenix has slot machines, but it closes at 2 a.m. The resort in Florida has restaurants, but they close at 10. The casino in Connecticut has table games, but the energy dies at midnight. Vegas had everything, all the time, forever. That was the pitch, that was the product. That was why you'd spend the money on the flight and the hotel and the commitment, because Vegas offered something nowhere else could match: the absence of time. Take away the all the time, and what's left? Just another resort destination. Just another place with gambling and restaurants and shows. Nothing special. Nothing that justifies the trip. Nothing that separates Vegas from the Indian casino 2 hours from your house. The 3 a.m. experience wasn't a bonus feature. It wasn't a nice to have. It was the core product. The thing that made Vegas stories worth telling. The reason people came back. The memory that stuck. We ended up at this coffee shop at 5 a.m. and there was this couple who'd just gotten married, and that's the Vegas story. That's what people come for. That's what they tell their friends. That's what makes someone else book a trip. When the coffee shop closes at midnight, the story dies with it. And stories are how Vegas sells itself. Losing 24/7 doesn't just reduce the hours, it kills the mythology, it murders the stories, it eliminates the reason Vegas exists as a category of its own. The mythology of Vegas was built on excess, on the idea that this place operated by different rules, that you could walk out of a club at 4 a.m. and the night was just beginning. That breakfast at dawn wasn't the end of the party, but just a pause before the next round. That mythology sold itself. It generated word of mouth. It made Vegas feel dangerous and exciting and unlike anywhere else you'd ever been. When the restaurants close at 10, when the casino floor empties at midnight, when the room service ends before you're even thinking about dinner, the mythology collapses. Vegas becomes safe, ordinary, predictable. A place with operating hours like every other place with operating hours. And here's the doom loop nobody's talking about, the part that makes this impossible to reverse. The fewer hours Vegas offers, the fewer tourists show up for those hours, which justifies even fewer hours. The contraction feeds itself. The tourists who wanted 3 a.m. Vegas, they're learning. They're adjusting their expectations. They're figuring out that the city they heard about doesn't exist anymore, and they're going elsewhere. They're staying out later in Miami, where the clubs actually go until dawn, where the after parties are real, where 4 a.m. is when things get interesting, not when the gates come down. They're going to Nashville, where the honky-tonks don't close, where the energy doesn't die at midnight, where the party continues without someone checking their watch. They're finding the places that still deliver what Vegas used to promise, the places that said yes when Vegas started saying no. Every hour Vegas cuts, it loses the tourists who wanted that hour. The night owl, who specifically chose Vegas because Vegas never closed, they're not coming back when Vegas closes at midnight. They're not adjusting their expectations, they're adjusting their destination. Fewer late night tourists means even less justification for late night hours, which means more cuts, which means even fewer late night tourists who bother making the trip. The graveyard shift isn't dying because no one wants it, it's dying because Vegas killed the customers who wanted it. Through price increases, that pushed out the night owls. Through reduced hours that trained people not to expect anything, through the slow murder of everything that made 3 a.m. worth experiencing. And once those customers find alternatives, they don't come back. They've already discovered that Miami delivers, that Nashville delivers, that Vegas doesn't anymore. The pipeline of late-night tourists is broken, and Vegas broke it itself. Picture Vegas in 5 years, 10 years, if the trend continues, if the math keeps winning, if the hours keep shrinking. Restaurants that close at 10 p.m. across the board. Not just the steakhouses, everything. The coffee shops, the casual spots, the places you counted on for 3 a.m. eggs. All dark by 10, maybe 11 on weekends if you're lucky. Casino floors that go to skeleton crew at midnight, half the tables closed, whole sections roped off. The energy concentrated into a few remaining pits while the rest of the floor sits empty, machines blinking at nobody. Clubs that wrap by 2 a.m. even on Saturday nights, the music dying just as the party used to peak, everyone spilling out onto a strip with nowhere to go. Room service that ends at dinner, want a burger at midnight, order before 9, or find a vending machine. A strip that empties after midnight, the lights still flashing, the fountains still dancing, the signs still promising 2-4 hour everything, but the actual experience? Dead, dark, closed. Vegas with a bedtime, Vegas with operating hours, Vegas that sleeps while its guests lie in hotel rooms, hungry and restless, wondering what happened to the city they came to experience. The end of 24/7's Vegas is happening right now, this quarter. This month, every property making quiet decisions about hours and staffing and how late to keep the lights on. The coffee shops closing earlier, the restaurants giving up on late night, the casino floors going dark in sections. The graveyard shift eliminated position by position the dealers, the servers, the cooks, the security guards, all sent home because there's no one to serve. The city that never slept is learning to sleep. The promise that defined Vegas for 70 years is being quietly abandoned. The identity that made this place unlike anywhere else on Earth dying in slow motion while the press releases talk about other things. The lights still flash, the signs still promise, but behind the signs, the gates are coming down earlier every month. The kitchens are closing sooner, the dealers are being sent home. Vegas built an empire on never closing, built a mythology on the absence of time, built a brand on the promise that whatever you wanted, whenever you wanted it, the answer would be yes. Now the answer is no. Now the gates come down. Now the city sleeps. And what Vegas becomes without 24/7s? Not Vegas anymore. Not really. Just a resort in the desert with nice restaurants and a famous fountain. A place that used to be something special. A destination that used to justify the trip. Just somewhere else now. Somewhere ordinary. Somewhere that closes at midnight like everywhere else. Hit subscribe to track the hours. I'm watching the closures, the reduced operating times, the graveyard shift cuts. Every sign that 24/7 is becoming a memory instead of a reality. Drop a comment. Have you experienced the late night closure? Gone looking for food at 3 a.m. and found nothing but locked gates and see you tomorrow signs? Felt the emptiness where the energy used to be? Because the city that never slept is going to bed. And when it wakes up, it might not recognize itself. The gates are coming down, the hours are shrinking, the promise is dying. What Vegas becomes without 24/7s? That's the question no one wants to answer, because the answer is something less, something ordinary, something that doesn't justify the mythology anymore. The coffee shop is closed, the story ends early now. I'll see you in the next one.